One thing we have not talked about yet are different pages on a website or how to use a menu navigation system. So I have set up here 3 different desktop web pages. They're just 3 different demo pages with pictures of plants on them. I have also set up a new component that is a menu bar. Currently, nothing in here has a prototype if I switch to my prototype tab, so nothing is functional yet. So far we have used interactions to switch between component states. It is possible to use interactions outside of components. For example, we could create an interaction that links clicking on this image to this page too. So if I switch to prototype, I select this specific image, I can get an arrow and drag it over to this MacBook Air 2 frame. If I preview this, you'll see once I click on this, it switches to that other frame. The normal way we might do something like this is with a menu bar. But really quick, before we get into that, let's talk about one other system of navigation, which is to link to different sections on the same page. So let's say we don't want to link to another page, but we want to link to something further down on this. We could just as easily say, when I click on this picture, I want you to scroll down to section 2. You can see that Figma makes some guesses about what we want to do. On click, scroll to this frame 3. And then if I preview that, when I click on this, it scrolls down. Now, oftentimes this will be butting right up against the top of the screen. So we can use a setting called offset. If I jump back to that interaction, I can offset this y coordinate to a negative value to say, hey, I actually want this anchor to be 50 pixels above where I told you I want to link to. And now when I preview this, you'll see that this stops 50 pixels above the item that we linked to. You might imagine how we could do something like this using a menu system, and that's the goal here. The one trick to doing this is when you have a menu, if you want to link to things on the page, it has to be on the same Figma page that the component instance is on. So far we have had kind of the guideline of building all your components on a components page. That's still a good process to have, but you may want to have your main component there for a menu, and then insert an instance on the page where you want to link between things, and then prototype it from there in terms of linking to stuff. So I'll add an instance of my menu bar. In here, we will add in the menu. So a good rule of thumb is to set up all your links before adding in instances of the component to the page so that you don't have to relink everything. There's a couple of caveats to this. So sections can only be linked to on the same page. Pages will carry over between instances in different frames. So for example, I could link page 1 to page 1, page 2 to page 2. And now if I were to insert copies of this into each page, it's like this is a little wide. Let's shrink this down. Let's make another copy up here. Perfect. You can already see that the prototype here is recognizing that those links carry over. So let's preview this. Now I can click page 2, it switches to page 2. I click page 1, it switches back to page 1. So now let's talk about the caveats with this section idea. So I could, on this first frame, link section 1 to section 1 and section 2 to section 2. And you can see it's making that guess of that I want to scroll to, which is correct. And when I preview this, it does work, but the menu scrolls up too, which is not normally how a website works. Usually a menu bar will have absolute positioning at the top of the page, and it will be in front of everything else. In order to make this happen in an auto layout frame like this is, in our design tab, we have to use this setting in position, which says ignore auto layout. When I select that, you'll see that it removes it from the flow of auto layout. And because I have 0 padding at the top of this frame, everything else moves up underneath of it. So I first need to add a little bit of padding to the top of my page, just to scooch this down. What we need this to do in prototyping, instead of scrolling with the parent, we need this to stay fixed, stay in place. We could also use sticky stop at top edge. Because this is already at the top edge, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to select fixed, stay in place, take another look at that, and you'll see that this starts to work as we expect it to. Sometimes your elements will scroll in front of the element that you want to stay at the top. And what's happening there sometimes in your auto layout frame is the order of Z indexing is wrong. If that happens, and it's not happening here because we didn't have this set to stay stop at the top of the page. So just to show you the example, if in the scrolling for this menu, I have this as sticky instead of fixed stay in place, what you might get is something like this, where the elements are scrolling, but they're overlapping our menu bar. That can be fixed with the way that our elements are stacking in the frame. So if I select my settings in auto layout, if I change my canvas stacking to the other way around and then preview it again, that problem should be fixed. And now it works the way we expect it to. I'm going to quickly change that back to fixed. And now this should work as expected. You make this a little larger. So this still jumps to page 1 and 2. If I'm on the first page, section 2 scrolls down to the second section. Section 1 ends up at the first section. And these do not work across pages. So those are the basics of implementing anchor scrolling and a menu system. The thing to remember here is to make sure that when you link stuff together, you do that with an instance on the Figma page where you want things to be linked together.